Hi, everyone. Good morning. It's a Saturday. This is the weekly briefing from Cloak and Dagger. It's been 2 weeks since we've done it, so I guess we'll call this the bi-weekly briefing. So, Albert, good morning. We just came off a Fed meeting yesterday. So there are a few things we're going to talk about today, and we may wander, but first is the Fed cut, kind of will there be a cut, won't there be a cut? Then we'll talk about Russia, Ukraine. All that's happened since our last video, and I'm a little bit skeptical that we're going to come to anything there, but I'd love to get Albert's thoughts on that. Then we're going to talk about Venezuela. We did a piece. We've done a piece. We've done pieces on the Fed. We've done pieces on Russia, Ukraine. We've done pieces on Venezuela this past week. So all that's there for you to read, but you get us talking about it. So Albert, thanks for your time this
Yep.
morning. Let's talk about the Fed first, and I'll just frame it up a little bit. So you for a long time, months and months, have said inflation, 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 Fed can't cut, not going to happen. I, since May, have said, probably since April, have said we need a cut in May. You definitely disagreed with that. And I was thinking, the Fed needed to turn dovish before they cut,
hmm
because Powell and his pals have been so hawkish that it just seemed weird to me that they would talk so hawkish and then immediately cut 25, right? So as I saw yesterday's meeting, that was the dovish turn, but I don't believe that it immediately means they're going to cut 25 in September. So we can talk about that in more detail. What was your view on that meeting?
Um, a little surprising that he went dovish,
Yep.
as dovish as he did. I thought he was going to be hawkish once again. He probably would have been if it wasn't for PPI and employment numbers starting to trend a different way than they would hope. I mean, listen, those numbers, they know those numbers well in advance. They
Yep.
manipulate those numbers well in advance.
Yep.
They have a script. I do agree with you that dovish talk comes before a cut,
Yep.
right? I do agree with you that 25 basis points quick or 50 is probably not going to happen right away. Still, I think they probably need another 2 months of data to justify a cut, right? Um, you and I have been on the opposite ends of inflation for
I'm
quite
still
a.
there.
We're still on the
Ah.
opposite. That's going to come to a head probably in the next 2 to 3 months, right? If in fact that I'm right and tariffs are starting to drive up inflation, or you're right that it's still subdued, we're going to find out pretty quickly in the next 3 months,
Yeah,
right?
September, October, we'll find out. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, am I going to be right or you're going to be right? Probably going to land in the middle, like it
Yeah.
usually does.
It'll be
You know
awkward.
what I
I think
mean?
it'll be awkward. Like the inflation will get to an awkward point, but not a 2021, 22 point again.
No, no. I think that inflation gets to 4%. They'll keep it under 4% under whatever which way they wanted. Uh, put the narrative out for, and then they'll use like, oh, well, growth and GDP are up 7%. So what does it matter?
Right.
Whatever. Um, I'm still concerned about inflation. If they cut, then I'm really concerned about inflation. Right? I guess it just depends on what they cut. I mean, if they do 25%, who cares? Right? What is 25 basis points really going to do? You know?
I think it changes mood. I mean, look, in trading yesterday, we saw this massive, wild presumption that there's going to be a 25 cut in September. So
Yeah.
immediately, people took that on Friday. Everybody took it all
Oh
on
yeah.
Friday, right? So as of Monday morning, that 25 basis point cut, if it happens, is all baked in, right?
Oh yeah. Oh,
How
without
much
question.
more upside is there based on 25 cut? I don't
No,
think I don't
nothing.
think there is any,
No.
right? Retail will think there is, but I really don't think there is any. So then what happens as we get closer to the meeting and people realize he was dovish at Jackson Hole, but he's not really that dovish when he talks and what other governors cut, right?
hmm
So, and especially when you get the guy from Chicago out, he's very hawkish right now, which is
hmm
silly. But um,
Well, it's hard not to be hawkish when the market's at 6,500, 64, 6,500, right? It's like, how do you justify a cut? And unemployment is like, okay, unemployment ticked up, but really, was it really that bad of of
Yeah.
a number? I don't know, you
Yeah.
know?
I'm not saying you're wrong. I
Yeah.
mean, markets are definitely elevated. I don't necessarily see it cut as always bullish equities. In
It will
fact,
be for Mag 7 though. For the tech stocks, it will be.
okay, so I saw something this week that was really interesting about that. It said that the revenue that these companies like Microsoft and Meta and other guys are getting for AI, their AI products, is like a tenth or a 20th of their investments announced over the next 12 months.
Hmm.
So they're supposedly going to invest 20x the revenues they're getting from this stuff over the next 12 months. I just don't get that, right? And what I suspect is we're going to get into kind of Q4 and they're going to start pulling that back. They're going to start pulling back that investment and saying, we decided that instead of $100 billion, we're going to invest $25 billion. That helps the stock. It kills those vendors like Supermacro or Supermicro or all these guys who build out the data centers, right? So helps Microsoft or Meta, kills those vendors. And then that's when valuations, I think, in tech really start to adjust downward. Is that plausible?
Yeah, it is possible, right? I mean, the valuations of tech is so like astronomically high right now that any like the script that you just laid out absolutely works.
Yeah.
Absolutely,
Yeah.
right?
And we saw Palantir start to, pull back quite a bit this week.
Yeah, but I'm a huge cynic, right, of this market, right? Huge, right? And every time I see these like dips in Nvidia and these dips in Google and the Mag 7 stocks and Palantir and whatnot, I look at it with a real skeptical eye. Like, why are these things dipping? Right when I
Now.
know that when I know that there's going to be bullish sentiment coming up, it's like
Yeah.
they're just hedge funds trying to get retail out and get position, and then they take Nvidia all the way down to 168, and then all of a sudden this dovish talk comes out, and Nvidia's right back to 178, probably going to go to 190, right? And
Yep.
and even on Twitter, and I'm just like, I'm going long Nvidia calls. Screw this. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, Mag 7 is like 35% of the market right now. Right,
Yep.
it's the easiest thing to pump, and it's the easiest way for them to rally the
Yeah.
markets, and they're going to continue to do that until the fundamentals are so offside or they need a justification for rate cuts that they're just it's going to just continue on.
Yeah, I'm with you on that, and I like it's hard to not buy into that. And I understand when you say equities are so high, it's hard not to be, uh, I guess, conservative on rates when Goolsby comes out and he's conservative about rates. But when I look at inflation, which I don't, again, you and I disagree on this. I don't see it. It's at 2.7 or something like that, CPI,
Mhm.
something like that. I think jobs are starting to be a real challenge, and so we'll have to see. But I, I just want to. I don't see a September cut. I see an October cut
No.
as the first. So
Yes,
we're agreed. You
I
don't see a
agree.
September cut,
Yeah,
and
I agree. I think they're going to dip the market to give a justification for it, whatever scapegoat they want to use.
yeah,
Um, and then they'll say, okay, now we need a rate cut, Powell,
right.
and that's when Powell probably is going to act.
Yeah, they have to signal dovish before they cut. They just have not turned dovish at all.
I would also say look to the subordinates of the Fed,
Yeah.
which is the Bank of Canada, New Zealand, Australia, so and so, to see what they do in September. If they're all cutting, they're testing that for the Fed.
Well, the extreme of that would be BOJ, right? BOJ
Yeah,
has been waffling, and it'd be
yeah, yeah.
really interesting to watch BOJ and see what they do as well. Okay, let's move on to Russia, Ukraine. We saw this meeting in Alaska a week ago, and we saw the meeting in DC on Monday, and you know, I I know people were pretty cynical about the Alaska meeting, like, oh, there isn't a peace treaty right away. Like, I don't think anybody reasonable expected that.
No.
On Monday, again, I don't know that anybody reasonably expected a peace treaty to come out of that. Um, but I'm just curious about your read of where things are now and what you think will happen.
I think we're getting there. I think that these are small steps to getting some sort of ceasefire. We're getting there certainly. I didn't think that this Alaska thing was going to be much of anything really, except for a stepping stone and how to get Putin and Zelensky together. Um, there's just a lot of things in the way, right? Like, the Ukrainians refuse to give up territory. The Russians refuse to allow NATO membership or EU membership. So and that would have been like the only real solution is giving up that territory for NATO membership, right? But both sides are just in disagreement of that.
If you
Um,
were Russia, would you allow NATO membership on your doorstep?
they're already on the doorstep in Finland. What does it matter, right? They're already
That's a good
they're
point. Yep,
yeah,
that's a
they're
good point.
already
Yep.
it's not that big a deal. I don't is at this point it's a PR thing for Putin to allow Ukraine to get NATO membership and it makes him look bad. So it's just not going to happen. But could they give up territory for it? I mean, I would if I was Ukraine.
Yeah, exactly.
They're Russians anyways over there, and I
Right.
understand there's going to be some pro-Ukrainians like, oh, they took the territory and blah blah blah. Well, it's a bigger game at foot here, right? You give up territory that are all full of Russians, anyways, right? And you gain NATO membership. I would trade that in a heartbeat, right? But we're far away from that sort of solution. But again, until the Russians get to a point where they're just incapable of continuing on this war, right? It's going to go on and meander for a little longer.
They
They're
can
losing.
outlast. Yep.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they're not going to outlast the West. The West is full of weapons and money and whatnot, and the Russians are getting butchered, left, right, and center, with those drones and whatnot. So there's going to be a point. There's going to be a critical point in a red line where Russia says, "Okay, let's just cease operations." But I don't think we're quite there yet. Maybe another 3 to 6 months.
Okay. What do you think? I was asked this question in an interview earlier this week. Um, the question was around Trump being nice to Putin and saying nice things about Putin. And he's justifying a criminal and all this stuff. And so I was like, look, Trump says nice stuff about every leader until they're not nice to him publicly, and then he'll be not nice to them publicly. But they're a leader of a country and he says it out of respect for the office. That's just protocol. Like, am I unreasonable there or
No, he does that all the time, and honestly, it's a little bit childish and a little bit primitive, and like say, "Oh, Putin's this." You're not fooling anybody, right?
right,
You're not fooling everybody, and I
right.
understand why he does it and tries to get a little bit better position in terms of
Yeah.
negotiations with Putin and whatnot. Putin's not going to buy it. The West
No.
does. No one buys it, right?
It's like him saying nice things about Kim Jong-il, like in 2018. Like first he
Yeah,
was whatever negative stuff he was saying, then he was saying positive. It's like he just does whatever's convenient, right?
yeah. He says things. He says things to about whoever, whether it be Putin or John Bolton or something, a great
Yep.
guy, this and that. Then the moment that you're not in his favor, that you're the worst person on the face of the earth and
Yep.
dumb and stupid.
Yep. Okay. The next question is about oil prices. If there is an agreement, let's say, with Russia, Ukraine in, let's say, September,
Hmm.
okay, the embargo on Russian oil, when does that go away?
Probably 30 to 60 days after that.
Okay. So November.
Yeah.
So then what happens to crude prices globally? Anything?
Uh, yeah, they'd all go lower. I mean, they'd
Okay.
go certainly lower. Oil would probably be in the low 50s pretty quickly after that. Listen, Russia crude coming online is the best thing for the oil market because of the efficiencies of Russian oil coming to the west and Middle Eastern oil going to the east, right? It's very efficient that way in terms of transport and pricing and whatnot. The way what's happening now is it's such a mess that trying to get the Middle Eastern oil here also on top of and the Russian oil going to the east, it throws things off. I talked to quite a few oil guys about that actually. Um, but yeah, probably 60 days after implementation.
Okay.
Once certain uh, points are made and accomplished in a ceasefire, then the Russians would be, outside of that. The sanction would be lifted.
Okay. So what's the likelihood of do you think it's possible we'll have an agreement in September? Too
No,
early?
too early. Maybe October, November.
Okay. Okay. So we go into 26, Q1 26 with lower crude prices globally.
Yeah, I think they're drifting down anyways. But a Russian peace agreement with Ukraine would definitely shoot,
Okay.
shoot it down to the low 50s.
Okay. And then all this talk about, India, US betraying India, blah, blah, blah,
Oh,
about Russian
come
oil, like
on.
all that goes away, right?
We've already discussed this so many
Yeah.
times. It's like, India's got to do what they have to do to safeguard their own interests,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And they use Russia as a counterbalance against the Chinese, right?
Right.
And now, the talk of, India and China is ganging up against the U.S. because of tariffs. Well, they're the two export economies that are competitors are not gaining up on anybody. They're
Well,
just trying to figure out what to do and how to address the situation, you know, temporarily. but
and
but
they've
long,
been in war since like 1962. So like
yeah,
pretty much,
exactly,
right? Not constantly, but off and on. And
exactly.
I just don't see those guys being best buddies.
No,
It's just not going to happen. Okay. So let's move on to Venezuela.
my
So
favorite topic.
yeah, go.
I've been saying for years, if the United States was serious about cutting off Russian, Chinese, and Iranian influence in Latin America and controlling the flow of illicit oil, illicit arms, illicit drugs, and so on and so forth, Venezuela is a key point that they have to take on, right? The IRGC is in Maracaibo. The Chinese take oil and fruits and foods from Venezuela and ship it back to their place. The Russians toy with Venezuelan crude to keep it off the market once in a while. It's such an easy win for the United States to
Yep.
take, and on top of that, it's a humanitarian problem of what the Venezuelan people have been dealing with Maduro, right? So it's a win-win-win in every single category. And just finally now they start putting a little bit of pressure on the Venezuelans with some warships over there. I don't think that they're going to do anything, but I mean, I can only hope. but it's certainly a step in the right direction for the U.S. reestablishing dominance in Latin America.
It's such an easy win. And I think it's Bush Cheney who took their eye off the ball in early 2000s that let Chavez come to power, right?
Oh, absolutely. And
Um,
then it's been a mess ever since then. Like the United States has completely ignored Latin America, which is
yeah.
absolutely ridiculous in my mind. And I've tweeted about this for years, Tony.
Yeah.
For about a decade, I've been saying the U.S. needs to go into Venezuela.
So this will be kind of a slow play, right? It's not like they're going to take action, this month or next month. They're going to just gradually ratchet up the pressure there. Is that how you see it?
That's what it seems like they're doing. Because honestly, if it was me, it would be the first week in office that there
Yeah,
there
exactly.
would be cruise missiles on that palace. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's just the way it is. Obviously, they have to go through their entire assessments, and they're going to verify, all the things that we talked about, the biker gangs on the street, the IRGC there, narcotics, and so on and so forth. They have to go through all their protocols and whatnot. But honestly, I would be launching missiles day one.
Okay.
They have no functioning military, right? The Venezuelans have no functioning military
Yeah.
whatsoever. So
Yeah.
it's an easy win. Go for it, Trump. I'll be
Yeah.
your first. I'll be the cheerleader for this one.
How do you think that would go over with people here and with people in Latin America? There'd
I
be a
think
lot of negative PR from
I,
Latin America, right?
well, it depends on what country you're talking about, but honestly, here in the United States is the only thing that matters. And if you want to shore up the Latino vote ahead of midterms, this is one hell of a way to do it.
Really?
A hell
Really?
of a way to
Okay.
do it.
And then what would they do for a transition? How would
That's
they?
that's that's tough. I mean, I know that they have like some sort of like transition government identified, and I don't know if they're in the country still or out of the country, but certainly they would have that identified, and it would. Venezuela is not the Middle East. Things are not, warlord, tribal as it is over there. So I think things would go smoother. Would they go completely smooth? Absolutely not. Like I said, there's cartels, there's biker gangs,
Oh
there's
yeah.
IC. There would be problems, but nothing that the U.S. and some allies can handle.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
French.
Are you serious? The French. Okay, very good. All right. Anything else, Albert? What else is on your mind?
That's about it.
Good. Okay. All
That's
right.
about
Thanks for
it.
your time. I'll get this out today. Thanks, guys,
Okay.
for everyone for watching. Hey, give us comments. Let us know what you think. Let us know other topics you want to cover, and we'll see you next week.
All
All
right.
right. Thanks,
Thank
Albert.
you.
Thank you. All right. Bye.